Hello and welcome to Friends of the Force, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Brad.
And I'm your host, Sarah.
And today on the show, we are bringing you an interview with author Madeleine Roux, who recently released her newest book, Star Wars Legacy, from Random House Worlds. And Sarah, we get another book set in the sequel era, specifically a book set between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. I'm so excited to be back.
We've got some good books in this era, and it is so exciting in this book that we get to dive into the stories of Leia and Rey and their relationship in between these two films, because they are two, not only are they just iconic Star Wars characters, but they are two characters who are very, very near and dear to my heart. So this was a really delightful read, and I really enjoyed digging into their struggles and their relationship together.
Totally. There is a lot to unpack in this book, which is why on today's episode, we have both a non-spoiler section of the interview as well as a spoiler section. So do be warned. I think it's about halfway through, but we will definitely notate that to you, the listener, and also notate the timestamp in our episode description. So just be warned there if you haven't had a chance to read it. But if you haven't read it yet, definitely check out the first half of this interview with Madeleine. Again, if you haven't been familiar with some of Madeleine's work, so she is a New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of the Asylum series. Her book, A Girl Walks Into the Forest, was a Kirkus Best Book of 2025. She's also written for several other IPs, including Marvel, World of Warcraft, Critical Role, and Dungeons and Dragons. But this is not her first time in Star Wars, because she wrote the short story Eclipse 9 years ago as part of the FACPOV, From a Certain Point of View anthology, celebrating 40 years of Star Wars. So very, very excited to have her back in the galaxy far, far away. And without further ado, here's our interview with Madeleine Roux. Well, Madeleine, welcome to Friends of the Force. We're so happy to have you, and congratulations on the release of Star Wars Legacy. How does it feel to have it now on bookshelves for Star Wars fans to read and dive into?
Thank you, first of all, for having me. It's very exciting. It's one of those things where you've just been keeping this secret for so long that it's a relief, honestly, to have it out and to let people get their hands on it. I was honestly not as nervous as I thought I would be. I felt like we did what we set out to do, and I know I did the best I could. So, it's just a good feeling all around.
Yeah, and how was the experience at San Diego Comic-Con, considering you just came back from that as a little bit of an early release?
It was madness, yeah. That was so cool to get it to people early, and honestly, I think it really helped because there were a lot of people there, like at my signing lines, just reading the book and then sort of like sharing their thoughts, online, and people were getting so excited, and so I think it really did help generate a lot of buzz, and we sold out every single copy we brought, which was nuts. Yeah, because we brought a lot. I was like,
that's awesome.
Really? So yeah, I mean, I've been before, but nothing like this, where it's like every year I've had like a big nerd release. I didn't go. And so people are sending you pictures of these like banners with your name on it. And you're like, that's sweet. I wish I was there to look at this in person. So to actually be there and see the wall with the cover on it, and it's just like, it's so surreal, and there's just Rey, cosplayers coming up to you and with the book. I don't know, it was really special. It was really cool.
From the pictures, as somebody who wasn't there, it seemed like an awesome time, so I'm glad to hear that it all.
I mean, the reaction was so positive. It was just like, you never know with like sequel era stuff, people could be kind of opinionated about it. So we had no idea what we were in for, but genuinely, I had nothing but wall-to-wall positive interactions there. So
I'm so glad. I think Star Wars is I always say it's most fun with friends, and it's always a great experience in person among other Star Wars fans.
Yes, absolutely.
And I know that you're a Star Wars fan, but since you are the first time on this podcast, I would love to hear more about how your Star Wars fan history began and how you connect most with the franchise.
Sure. I mean, I keep telling this story, but it's the truth. It's like some of my earliest memories as a human being are of watching Star Wars and playing with the action figures, because I have two older brothers, and they were like right in the strike zone age wise for it. And my dad was was pretty into it and would take them to the movies. So, we had all the action figures, and I would just watch the movies on repeat, especially like to like I only watched A New Hope so few times as a child. I wasn't into that one as much. I really loved Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I was obsessed with the Ewoks. I was obsessed with Princess Leia. And so I was like, give me maximum Leia and maximum Ewoks. So those were kind of the things I zeroed in on. And I don't know, it was just like, I just gravitated towards her right away. Han Solo was maybe one of my first crushes, along with like Gambit and Indiana Jones. Like,
yeah, that's valid.
I guess I have a type, but and yeah, the whole vibe of it, I just loved it. It was so magical to me. It was so inspiring, and I just remember being a little kid, just like staring up at our television, watching it over and over and over again. And then I kind of bounced off the prequels and was like, well, maybe I'm not a Star Wars fan anymore. And then it was Knights of the Old Republic that got me back. That was the one. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, please, this is amazing. And then, pretty shortly after that, we were in for kind of an era of great expanded universe stuff, and the video games were great. And then, the hype was building for The Force Awakens and things like that. So once I sort of got pulled back in, I realized there was all this other stuff that had come out in the meantime, like, books and games. So that was what got me back. And then I've been, deep in it ever since, I would say. So
that we both understand for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, first off, I love hearing Ewok love. It seems like so many authors start with the Ewoks that we talk to, but they're always bringing up the Ewoks, and I mean, like, that's totally based. Knights of the Republic, I have not played myself, but I've heard such great things. And you got to play a little bit with some stuff in this book, which we'll talk about too. But it's been 9 years since your last piece of Star Wars fiction, which was the very impactful and heartbreaking Eclipse.
Sorry. Sorry about
still
that
think
one,
about
everybody.
Sometimes I just wake up in the middle of the night and I like scream and I'm like, Eclipse. Because it haunts
here.
me.
It's upon us. Yeah.
But you've written over a dozen novels since, which is a lot of books. And I have to shout out your blog. You have a great blog post on your website about writing 20 books, which I highly recommend. It's very, very awesome.
I need to update that again one day. The hyperfixation wore off and I was like, do I want a Substack? I don't know.
Yeah. I've written 25 books now. Here's what I know.
Yeah. Well, this is 28. This book coming out is 28. So 29 should be out next year. Yeah. We're creeping up on 30.
Keep him busy. I love that for you, first off. But I mean, you've grown a lot as a writer since Eclipse, and you've released a lot of books. And I'm just wondering what kind of lessons and tools over those years have you brought it with you as you dive back into Star Wars and into this galaxy now that you get to write a full-length novel for Star Wars?
Yeah, so I'll try to tell this without being like trauma dumpy, but like, a lot happened between then and now. And a kind of a major event for me was that I lost my oldest brother, and it was very sudden and very traumatizing and very difficult. And I immediately after that was asked to do What If Loki Was Worthy? And that is a book in which Loki accidentally kills his brother. And I was like literally a month off of losing my brother, and I got offered this book, and I was like, whew, boy, I will say yes on the caveat that like it's going to be really raw. It's going to be really personal. I'm going to go like deep into this stuff. It's going to be a book about the way grief tears a family apart. And so I'm going to be drawing from some like pretty real stuff. And they were like, we love it. We are here to support you, whatever you need. It was, and that was Gabby, who is also my editor on this book. And so the amount of trust that we built on that project was really profound, I think. And I just can't say enough about how great she is. But also it taught me that like the best books that I make are the ones that are personal, and not to like, I used to get really in my head about that and really like, oh, I don't want this to like be too much about me and like my experiences. And I would kind of like sometimes write at a bit of a distance. And I learned through that whole process that that's just like the worst approach I could have taken. And that I still wrote some great books, but like, I know that my best work has come out since. Like, I know that I am in a period of like very serious improvement, and that like my art has never been better, and it is because I'm like not afraid anymore to just like be more myself in these books. So I did that, and then I did A Girl Walks Into the Forest, which was nominated for a Stoker Award. It was a Kirkus Best Book of 2025, and then I was working on Star Wars. And it was like, okay, the lesson is do not shy away from making this real and personal and raw. So yeah, I think that was the greatest sort of lesson and improvement over that time period.
I think it's always a really beautiful thing when we can channel some of our hurt and some of our, struggles that we go through into what is then beautiful art. And it's in giving those hard feelings new life. And I always, feel grateful when I can do little things of that. I'm not that creative, but I try and I'll channel into a little bit of personal writing or things like that. So thank you for, sharing that. And also for writing these books that have been so impactful. I really felt that, the realness of Rey's emotions through this book, which I will continue to dive into. But, speaking of Eclipse, which, ouch.
Yeah,
ouch.
Tough stuff.
I know it's been a while, but like it hasn't really worn off that one.
When Bale turned up in Andor season 2, I was like, oh, sorry.
Yeah. But you got to write Breha Organa to Leia and Rey, and you've had the opportunity with these characters to write some of our favorite women in Star Wars, as well as add the new women characters in this book to the Star Wars galaxy. What has writing these iconic characters and adding to the tapestry of complex women characters in Star Wars meant to you?
It's kind of everything, because again, Leia was such a formative character for me as a child. It was really like she and Carrie Fisher sort of became this North Star for me, because you just weren't getting characters like that very often. I mean, here and there, and certainly in like, like in books, certainly, but in big popular media, that just was not the case. And so I take it really seriously, because it's like I was so excited when we finally got Rey. It meant so much to me, and I know it meant a lot to a lot of other people. So it really does become a privilege and an honor, and not a burden in like a bad sense, but you don't want, you want to take it seriously. And I think so much of our sort of big tentpole nerd media is very like from the default perspective of a man. Like that's just how it is. And I don't think that's like a controversial thing to say, but so to be like, nope, there's going to be ladies on the cover, there's going to be a lady writing it, and primarily the POVs inside the book are from women. It was very intentional. It was very intentional, because part of this was like, if we're going to do this right, if it's going to be a book about feelings, if it's going to be a bit quieter, I don't want to lie about the content. I don't want to project that this is going to be like some rollicking across the galaxy shoot 'em up. That's not what we're doing here. This is really about these two women finding each other. And so, having the main antagonist be a woman was also very intentional. I really wanted to mirror Rey's life through a different lens with her, and even Gav, who is our kind of soul male, like big voice in the book. His journey is kind of about accepting your softer side and accepting that maybe you're not a front lines person, but that you still have a place in the fight. So all of that is intentional, and all of it is done to be just not shy about it again, right? Just to be very like, no, this is what we're doing here. And I think the more you can prepare people for that with the design choices, with the way the story is described on the flap and all that stuff, like I think the people I'm seeing who are having the best time with it are approaching it with an open mind and an open heart, and not sort of like deciding what they think it's going to be ahead of time, but just sort of letting it happen to them and going along with it.
No, I love all that. This book definitely wears its heart on its sleeve. It has so many emotions, and dealing with these really like complex life problems and identity problems, and we'll dive into that more too. And I also got a shout out, speaking of more women, a part of this book, Saskia Marleveld, who is the narrator, if I'm saying her name
I've heard
correctly.
she does an incrible job. Yeah.
Yes,
I
did. I read half the book, and then the second half I audiobooked, and she was fantastic. So cannot recommend Star Wars audiobooks enough. And it's kudos to your writing as well, that it you can listen to it so well too. It's amazing. But when you think of the title Legacy, and Rey is now a part of that legacy as well within the Skywalker family, like, what does legacy mean to you in the context of Star Wars as we think of this family and even others that we've been introduced to across the timelines?
Yeah, I mean, I think the title is really hinting at this sort of sense of like, this book is coming out quite a ways after those movies are done. And I think in a lot of ways it felt to me like a way to sort of also write a bit of a retrospective, because again, I just think it's foolish to pretend like we don't know the context, that we don't have sort of the larger conversation about Star Wars and the sequels and all of it going on, right? And not to approach it as sort of a like, I'm arguing with you that you should like the sequels, but more of a like, hey, what if we just like really treated these things as the text, and can I bridge these movies in a way that brings a little bit of catharsis, because we just didn't get to really have that with Leia. We just couldn't. It just wasn't in the cards because of Carrie Fisher tragically passing in the middle of filming. So, it was I think it's sort of an all-encompassing title for a reason, because it is about the Skywalker legacy, but it is also this torch passing to this new character and this new universe and this like new set of Resistance characters as well. So yeah, I mean, it's a big one. It feels, the title feels huge. It was sort of a workshopped thing that everyone came to eventually. I was throwing out crazy ideas. I was like, I don't know, like, this is, how do you encompass this book in a title? It's really challenging. So luckily I had some help with that. And it's also hard because you don't really know like what, like, this is a Lucas thing, and it's like you don't know what they really want. So in a lot of ways it's more about like, well, what do you guys want to say? What is, I'm in your sandbox, so like what do you feel like this book needs to be called?
It's so fascinating to me, and I love how big of a collaboration kind of these books are, this licensed fiction is, because you're having to, write your own story. You're playing in the sandbox as someone else, but you're also getting to really build part of this story in a way that will stick going forward, which is exciting and cool. And I love the way that, these stories all weave in and out of each other across the franchise. I think it really makes the fan experience much richer, at least for me as a books reader.
Yeah, I mean, I really did. I shout them out in the acknowledgments, but there's a lot of books in this that I went to for inspiration. Claudia Gray's books, especially Bloodline, and there's like a lot of from Adam Christopher's Shadow of the Sith, and Rebecca's book comes right before that. So, there's building on some ideas from her book, and Mike Chen was like just great. Like he was such a resource while I was writing this, because I was like, I have this bonkers idea, and you're the guy who know. Oh, this is the non-spoiler portion. About this character. I would love to pick your brain. And he was just down to clown. So yeah, I mean, it's just and they've all been so kind and so welcoming. So yeah, it absolutely is a tapestry. I think of it that way.
Yeah. And you mentioned a little bit earlier about, writing these characters and their relationships and bridging that gap in between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. What was most important for you to capture about the relationship of Rey and Leia in this time period?
Yeah, I mean, so when I get brought onto these IP projects, I'm very upfront that my goal is always to like go small and to go internal, because the movies are grandiose, and they're, these huge cinematic shots, and they're beautiful, and there's costuming and all these things happening. But to me, you should always be thinking about the medium first. And the novel is like a tool to get psychologically deep, right? And so that was something I really wanted to keep at the forefront, was this idea of like, we finally get to spend a bunch of time in Rey's head, and like, we need to go there. We can't like flinch away from that. And I think in the movies, there's a lot of shorthand, right? Of sort of like, well, everyone loves Leia and everyone seems to love Rey. So of course they love each other. But it's like, there's really no texture to that relationship. No offense, Star Wars. In the first in the first two movies, they just kind of run into each other, and Leia says nice things to her, but there isn't really a like sense of why, other than Leia has a great like instinct for people who are vulnerable and knowing when to like turn on that nurturing side of herself. But there aren't like conversations happening, you know, and I really wanted to be like, there are some obvious blanks here that they never talk about. And to me, like the closeness we see them have at the beginning of The Rise of Skywalker, to me, that says that they went there and that if they have this master and Padawan, master apprentice relationship, there has been these hard conversations. They have done the work on those things together. So that was really at the forefront, was like, what do we need them to know about each other? How can we have these hard conversations, have them grow through those things so that their relationship as presented in The Rise of Skywalker feels earned and it brings new context to it. And when you're watching it, you're not like jarred. You're like, oh yeah, I this makes perfect sense.
Maybe this is my naivety, but when I watched the end of The Last Jedi originally and Leia says like, we have everything we need, I'm like, great. They're going to have just so much free time. They're going to have a great time the next year.
Yeah.
They have everything they need, happily ever after, until The Rise of Skywalker, right? And then I got to get back into the battle. But like this book is like, no, actually, like things are kind of tough for them, even though they kind of end on that hopeful note. Like there's a little bit of strain there. There's a little bit of murkiness to work through. And I really liked how this book surprised me in that way of like, Last Jedi leaves you with that hope, but there is still stuff to work through on like a psychological and emotional level, and it's not going to be easy. Nothing has ever been easy for Rey.
Exactly. And it's sort of the meta knowledge of like, you're not ending The Last Jedi with Leia being like, well, this is gonna effing suck. Like, you know, you tried to like lead into the next movie with like a big moment, right? And you want the music swelling and you want the feeling. But again, I'm always like, do we have everything we need? Let's drill down on that. Like examples, please. You know, roll the footage. I'm not seeing the footage. So yeah, so I was really like, I have to put myself in Rey's shoes genuinely and think about everything that just happened and how insane it is, given she has been alone most of her life. And then this is like the last short little bit. And so much has transpired. And this is really her chance to catch her breath and sort of process a little bit of that stuff. And obviously, she doesn't do a great job of processing it alone. And the whole point of the book is her discovering, like, I can't process this alone. I need someone to sort of soundboard these things off of. And Leia is the perfect person, and making the argument that Luke was kind of never meant to be her master, that Leia was always the better choice. So I'm not trying to contradict Leia's pithy comment at the end of that movie. I'm just trying to, of course you would want to comfort someone in that moment and inspire them and make them feel good. But then like once the dust settles and, you know, you're just like waking up and getting dressed and having your coffee, you're like, do we have everything we need? Because I'm not so sure. Yeah, so that's always going to be what I want to do. I always want to make these people psychologically a little broken and then help them put it back together. So,
but it also, I mean, makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, you would go where you would hope that like the depth of these characters would continue to go in this book because, and I won't spoil it in this sense, but Rey is also struggling after The Last Jedi. You know, having severed that connection with Ben Solo, Kylo Ren. How do I feel in the aftermath of that? What am I taking from that experience? That I think that was also a really kind of interesting thing that I probably hadn't put as much thought into as I probably should have as a fan of like, how's Rey doing?
Yeah, because again, I was just like, I mean, if I had been alone on a desert my whole life and then I had like this weird situationship with like the most evil person to ever do it, apparently, like in my lifetime, right? And then but there was like something there, and we connected, and then there was like this really fraught moment, and then we had this fight scene that was kind of shot like it was maybe a love scene. Like, what's this about, right? And you're like, and the fact that it just is like zip, like, nope, we just move on. I was like, hold on.
Wait a second.
I've been dumped. Like, it's just like, I don't know. It was just and because she is so naive in so many ways, it just felt like there's no way you would just shake that off. And you're on a road trip with his mom. Like, it's all right there. Let's just go where it is,
His mom, who is also maybe one of the most important people in the story of the full galaxy ever, maybe.
Yeah, no big deal. No big whoop, as me would say.
Right. We really love it, like, when authors get to add their own nuggets into the Star Wars universe and get to add a little piece of themselves into the canon specifically. Was there a favorite thing or things that you got to add to the Star Wars universe in this book? Light spoilers or no spoilers? Unless you want to answer that with a spoiler question, and we can save it for 3 minutes from now.
I'll be vague. I think all the Old Republic stuff was really where I got to sort of like just take the gloves off and do, well, the Brilla stuff too, honestly, is very me. But the Old Republic stuff was sort of like me begging on hands and knees to get to to integrate some of that and making the argument for why I think it should be there and what it's doing. I would have written 19 more chapters of just that stuff if I could. I would write a whole series about those characters if I could. That's not really like Easter eggy though, or it's more just like I just love that period, and I've always wanted to get to like just like put like just touch it a little bit. I would say, so I ran a Star Wars 5e campaign, which is like Star Wars Dungeons and Dragons, and it really was like it ran for a year. It's on hiatus, but it was like truly so magical for me. And so as sort of like a thank you to my players, because it really did help me like fall in love with Star Wars in a new way. They're all hidden in the book somewhere. So they're all little tiny, like, one-off little characters. So
I love that so much. And I also have to say that I also loved the Old Republic stuff. I think I speak for both of us when we're really big High Republic fans. And so,
oh, great. Yeah. Well, there's a little Rhys Silas shout out in there too. Yeah.
Yes. I was like, oh, hello, when I saw that.
That's my boy.
Yes, indeed. But it was so cool because I was like, okay, we're going back, and then we're going way, way back, and it adds so much more depth into the current canon of Star Wars, and I hope that we get that opportunity in the future to really dig in.
Me too. I would love to come
You'll
back
be on call for that.
I would love to be back for Old Republic stuff. It really is my jam, and like I just had all this. I had so much like art and backstories and full on things for all of the older Jedi stuff, and to me it just felt important that if we're going to sort of see Rey start to piece together her philosophy of what is the Jedi, what are they, how am I going to do this, how am I going to rebuild this, that she sort of gets a slice from all these different sources, right? That she sort of gets the really like religious feeling era there. It's like we're using like parables to teach people things, and we have this sort of structure that has a very specific purpose, and this is why people come here. And like this era when it was like there were a lot of Jedi, right? Like I think it's important to just give her all these different points of view, some of which obviously I won't mention because they're spoilery, but that was really part of the intention behind it, was to have her learn from all these different eras of Jedi.
I love it because she's taking all this different wisdom across the timeline, and she's almost like kit bashing her own version of what a Jedi should be, And I think that's what excites me most about the future. If she ever comes back into movies later down the road, is like, what is that ultimate kit bashed version of the Jedi that she, becomes or tries to pass down and to others? And Luke was certainly a lot more jaded than most people, right? So, like you said, he's maybe not the best teacher for Rey, but I think, Leia being sort of that mentor in this book, and giving her the space to have some of that exploration and be there to support her as she's on her learning journey, right? Like is really impactful, because like Leia's also learning with her without her brother in the galaxy anymore, right? Like she's the last of the Skywalkers, or so we think.
Or so
right?
we think, yeah.
Well, there's also Ben Solo out there, but he's a whole
Sure,
complicated matter.
He's a different can of worms, yeah.
Speaking of, you mentioned drawing and art of some of these characters, and on May the 4th this year, you posted some sketches from your Star Wars sketchbook, which, round of applause, amazing. You just do it all. I love it. You write, you draw.
Thank you.
We were so excited when that got unveiled, especially the one of Ben Solo with his kind of like tunic on.
The green shirt heard around the world. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. And the Ben Solo fans are rabid, ourselves included. So we'll take any crumbs we can get. How did this process come about for you? And does creating that visual style of your characters age your writing process? And how does it, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I did it a little bit while I was drafting. It was such an intense process that I wasn't drawing as much. And it was actually one of those things where so a few years ago, two years ago, I don't remember, I got really obsessed with the show, Portrait Artist of the Year. It's a British show. It's just like wonderful. And I was like, I just vacuumed up every single season of it. And then I was like, I want to do this. Like, this is cool. I want to learn to paint. So, and I have an ace in my sleeve, in that my father is an incredibly accomplished like media artist. Like, he paints, he does it all. So I grew up drawing and painting, but not like that, right? Like, I didn't like sit down to learn. I didn't learn about like, okay, this is why you have to do things this way. This is the order the colors go down. This is color theory. This is whatever. So I really threw myself into it. And just fell in love, and I really fell in love with watercolor eventually, and gouache. Those are kind of the things I use the most. But I was just like so wrapped up in this book, I just wasn't doing it at all. And then once it was turned in and we were in more of the editing phase, I was like, man, I miss it. I miss painting. I miss drawing. I'm gonna like do this. I'm gonna like go back and actually like kind of work through some of the stuff I did in the book with these different portraits and visualize these people more. And it actually helped in editing, because I think it helped me tighten up some of the descriptions of people. And I also realized like Adira looks completely different than she did in earlier drafts, because I started drawing her and I was like, oh, this is just Hera. Like, she looks the way I described her. You're like, so Hera, got it. And I was like, we got to change that. That's not right. She's got to like be more distinct. So that helped a lot. I had to like totally re-visualize what she looked like physically. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just a cool way to sort of like sit with what you've done and do a different process and meditate a little bit on the book. But and I just knew people were really, really excited, and I was like, I think this will help. I think it'll just give you a nudge to know, like, I really, really do care about this stuff. I spent a lot of time on it, and a lot of my artistic energy has gone toward it. So
yeah, it was so cool to see, and I was like, I love art. I love artists. I love people who are creating things in the world. It's a huge part of the reason why we do this podcast. And so I was like, wow, she can do anything. This is amazing. I'm so glad she's writing Star Wars.
How about that? You know what? Math, so.
But this podcast has nothing to do with math.
I'm in a post-math phase of my life. I'll tell you what. I'm never thinking about it again.
Exactly.
If I don't have to.
Exactly.
And although I do have to do it for books like this, you're like, I'm sorry, what's a parsec? Like, how fast can they get there? And you're like trying to figure it out.
See, I somehow got through college without taking a single math class. I ended up reading books in a class that counted for a math credit. And now I have to do basic math at my job. And I'm going, what's happening? Why? I got a history degree. What?
Sometimes I try to tell myself I'm in the post-math phase of my life as well, until somebody hits me with another BBY and I'm like, what? Now I gotta do the numbers. Being a Star Wars fan is rough.
Yeah, and you're like ages too, because you're like, wait, what? How old is Rey? And like these people need to be in her age group, and then
yeah. When was Kiadi-Mundi's birthday? Huh?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
I remember at one point, because I really wanted Brilla to have been a disciple of Rey Sloane's, and they were like, you gotta change her age then. If this is what you want, she can't be this age. It wouldn't make sense. I'm like, oh crap. So there is actually an unfortunate amount of math even in something like this.
It's tragic.
Yeah.
And with that tragedy, we do conclude our spoiler-free section of this interview.
So
we will
out.
jump into the plot, the spoilers, things that happen.
Cool
This
people
is your
only who have
cool,
read the book.
cool people, readers only at this section.
Right.
So you have been warned, listener. Okay. And with that, we're here to talk about the Henchbrayo plot, Hayes Minor, My Girl Rose Tico, all of that. So we spend so much time on the cover and in this book with our established, canon characters that we know and love already, but you also have the opportunity to bring in a bunch of new characters to this book. You expand on the suffering of the people of Hayes Minor and Major, which is where Rose and Paige Tico are from, and also use that story to, shed light on the way that the First Order is oppressing people across the galaxy. What was most important for you to highlight about Gavrin and Wolstenholme and the people of Hayes Minor and Major?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I really wanted this book to stay in the like Joseph Campbell sense, a real like self versus self, like not. I really didn't want to give an antagonist that it's like Leia and Rey are on the run constantly and they need to move a lot. And it's logistically challenging because the resistance is on the back foot at the beginning of this book. They just got shellacked at Crate. So it's like, the First Order is ascendant. The resistance is kind of licking its wounds. And so to me, it just felt wildly unrealistic that Leia and Rey would like zip around the galaxy willy-nilly, not concerned at all about, what is going on and who is tracking them and how likely they are to be intercepted. So I was pretty strict right off the bat when I was pitching these things that I'm like, I'm putting them somewhere and then they are staying on that somewhere. So we have to make it count. It has to make sense why they're there. And I thought it would be too coincidental and easy if it was like, oh, Pakara actually has like ancient Jedi structures. Like I was like, we can't do that. That's also weird. So, yeah, so I knew that we needed this sort of ticking clock happening in the background that like, yes, they are. I mean, obviously there's dangerous things in the temple. It's not like they're just like chilling, but we need this sort of sense that something's coming. And that was really the impetus for creating Brilla and having her be in the book. But then once the themes of the book became clear to me and I realized what it was about, I was like, okay, well, then she can be an exploration of someone who is very similar to Rey in a lot of ways. They share a lot of qualities. They have similar tragic childhood backstories. But Brilla kind of takes the opposite lessons away from everything. And I also really loved the idea of like deconstructing this idea of like the rebellion as this always positive, and it is in the sense of like, yes, the First Order and the Empire should be rebelled against. That's not what I'm saying. But if you're a child and it just introduces chaos into your life, you don't really have the context for like, oh, but it's okay because morally we're on the we're on the right side. Like you just see chaos. Your life is just upended, right? And so for a child to see a moment of rebellion and have it impact them negatively to the point where they do not want to be involved in that at all and actually swing to the other side felt very interesting to me. That she is not the First Order by and large, like kidnaps children and press gangs them into service. Brilla volunteers. She signs up as a child to do this. So she's a true believer. And I really wanted the deconstruction of a true believer, because we never get like, we kind of, Hux turns eventually, but he's still loyal to the First Order. He just doesn't like Kylo Ren, really, right? He just doesn't like the direction that's going. But I really wanted a true believer kind of being absolutely screwed over at every turn by this system that she has given her life away to and dedicated herself to. And to give her all these points along the way where she could turn around and see what's going on and come to the light and make the right decision. But she just like can't. She can't do it because ultimately Rey has a support system and Rey is vulnerable and Rey is willing to like grapple with her darkness and share it with someone like Leia, where Brilla is not, and so she doesn't have the Leia in her life that's helping her, and she doesn't have the resources at her disposal to sort of realize all the ways she's going wrong in life. So it was like a really fun to take her on the inverted arc that Rey is on in this book. And I also just think we just don't get a lot of the First Order in this era, you know, like we just don't spend a lot of time with them outside of, you know, some shots of Hux and Kylo. So it was like, okay, let's actually like do a little more with this, see a little more how this functions, expand on that. And obviously Gav is there to have a different kind of journey where he's kind of on this, I did sign up for the rebellion, I did go to the front lines, oh my god, it's the worst. I'm not cut out for this, but I don't want to run, right? Like I don't want to sit it out. So where do I belong? And letting him go on that journey, and also having someone who is like not into the Jedi, I thought would be interesting to have someone who starts out actually very skeptical because I don't know, you didn't show up to save us. Like we got we got invaded. Our home is in shambles. There were no Jedi Knights, you know, flying in, deployed, fighting off the bad guys. We were left on our own. So I think it makes sense that there would be a lot of people who are like skeptical of this legend that they've heard.
Especially since its memory has been so effectively erased and discarded.
Propaganda.
Yeah, yeah,
propaganda. Yeah.
Within the era of the Empire and through now, especially since you know Luke he goes poof into the night at some point. So yeah.
Yeah, this book is just full of inner turmoil with all of our characters, and I honestly love like when Star Wars does that. I mean, it's one of the reasons like Andor is my favorite thing, because you just have characters who like you think should just be like totally committed to whatever they're doing, but then it's just that self-doubt that constantly creeps in, and the like, I have everything, but why don't I have everything? Like, why don't I have the things I actually do want, even though I'm surrounded by, you know, whether it's like resources or the right people, but still something is not quite right in my life and I can't really pinpoint why. And you got Leia, who is like, I mean, she's having her own identity crisis in this book. One of my favorite lines of this is actually when she's communing with Luke, Force Ghost Luke, which is just, all those scenes are super chef's kiss, might I say.
Thank you.
Incredible.
Thank you.
But Luke tells her, you want to save everyone, but we both know you can't. Don't make the same mistake our father did. And that line stuck out to me like a sore thumb, because it's like acknowledging the Skywalker's compassion to a fault. Yeah. And also confronting Leia's guilt over, you know, what happened to Ben and what happened maybe to like the Raddus and what she's going through with Rey, right? And so I'm just curious, like, as you're writing Leia, who is like faced with who she is versus like this idealized Jedi self, like how do you approach that identity crisis, especially for a character who like we often see as being the most put together in a sense, right? And here she is really being broken down in other ways.
Yeah, that was another thing I was pretty clear about in the early days of this book, is I was like, you're not going to get a Leia who is like fully formed from me, because I don't think that's interesting. I feel really strongly if you're a POV character, you need to have an arc of some kind. And I thought, you know, she is great at so many things. She is so competent. But I would also imagine that by this point, she would be pretty worn down. She's lost everyone in her life that's important to her almost by this point, and her son is like hanging in the balance, and she's just kind of left holding the bag in a lot of ways. Like, okay, you figure it out. And also, here's this Jedi, you need to train her, but you have like a year's worth of experience with that. Good luck. Like, there's no one else, right? So I think she would struggle a lot with like, man, wouldn't it be nice if I hadn't quit and I was like not only this, you know, general, but also a Jedi master? That certainly wouldn't hurt us right now. And the sort of regret that creeps in, I think, when you've lived a lot of life and made choices, right? I don't think she made necessarily big mistakes, but she did make choices. And, you know, Tython is an intentional setting because it is like known for its force phenomena. And so having her have these sort of like really intense dream sequences that are like, is this a vision? Is this a dream? is this Tython working on her? How much of this is her psychology and how much of this is the Force, right? Like that sort of is up in the air and for the reader to decide. But that she's having these really intense dreams kind of showing her like, well, if you had stuck with it, you might have saved it all, right? You might have stopped the First Order before they could blow up a planet. You might have stopped them before anyone got to Ben, right? Like there might have been this whole other path that unfolds, and I think it's like a normal thing to grapple with. But I wanted Luke to be there to sort of be the mirror to her and say like, yeah, okay, so what then? So the First Order gets Rey, like that's not good, right? Like any way you slice it, this like we were headed for something like this, and also you can't go back, and there's no way to change it, and all you can do is deal with what's in front of you. And it just felt important to me to let Leia have a little bit of these moments of weakness and regret, but ultimately she realizes like, oh, I can't just like cosplay as my brother. I have my own qualities and knowledge that I can give Rey, and that's where I need to go, right? That he couldn't be the soft place for her. I can be, you know, like she starts to find out how mean Luke was to Rey when she showed up. And she's like, are you kidding me? Like, we worked so hard to get her to you, and then you were just a dick. Like, what were you thinking, man? You know,
grumpy
like,
old man yells at Cloud. Come on, Luke.
I mean, the thought of her having to learn about it is like so exasperating, right? She's like, well, no wonder we are where we are, and she's having all these bad feelings about herself. So, yeah, just kind of letting them be who they are, right? That like Luke is compassionate to a fault, and so I think in his sort of becoming a Force ghost, he would also understand that he made mistakes with Rey, perhaps, but also is it the will of the Force that now she's with Leia, who is the better mentor for her and can be nurturing and knows not to just scold her constantly and be nasty. So yeah, it was scary to write lines like that, but important to let Leia have a bit of mileage to go yet in this book.
Yeah, I'm a particular fan of like General Leia, older Leia. And so anytime that we get to like really dig into her, I'm like, yes, Bloodline was the first Star Wars book canon book that I read.
Oh yeah, it's so
and,
good. Yeah.
And it was so foundational for me as a fan getting back into fandom as an adult. But you mentioned Luke and some choices that he's made, including in Last Jedi saying, you went straight to the dark. And this is a line that haunts Rey throughout this book in a way that, you know, I could speak for both of us when, you know, we thought was really effective and really interesting. And I love it when these lines get expanded on in books in ways. There's another Luke line where it's like the destiny of the Jedi is to confront fear here. Yeah, that one got expanded on in a way that I thought was really recontextualized in a way too, and I really love when that happens. Point being, building upon, you know, a brief appearance in The Rise of Skywalker, Dark Rey is a feature throughout this book as Rey kind of struggles with the various facets of her identity and where she belongs in the world, as you know, as this with this Dark Rey being a manifestation kind of her worst fears. What was your process into diving into her psyche and her understanding of her own light and darkness at this point in her story?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because the Dark Rey stuff actually was more for Leia in a lot of ways. I mean, yes, obviously Rey is grappling with it, but because I knew that Leia was going to find out about the Palpatine stuff, that like there had to be something that she was glimpsing in Rey that made her concerned enough about that information when she learns it to not immediately turn around and tell Rey. Like I worked really hard to make all of that feel right, because to me Leia is just not the type of person to like lie or like withhold information like that. And so it felt really important that Rey was genuinely struggling with an internal darkness that Leia was seeing kind of like seep out now and then. And that then when she finds out from Luke that, you know, Rey is related to Palpatine, there's like a connection made there. and a reason to say to herself, okay, she's like deep in it right now. I've almost lost her. Luke almost lost her. She's really kind of hanging on by a thread in a lot of ways. This is not the time for this information to get to her, and to be very sensitive about it, because in Bloodline, Leia is ambushed with the reveal of her father being Darth Vader in front of the whole world, and it's traumatizing. So, those two things are kind of front of mind, right? I think those are the things that she's at war with, which is like, she deserves to have this information, but also, will this actually in the long run hurt her to find out right now in this moment? And that's the difficult choice she has to make. So that was sort of the reason Dark Ray showed up initially. And then I was like, no, this makes sense to me. Like, she has this really intense vision on Octo in the weird pit. And, I just do think she almost like fries that ship with lightning in the Rise of Skywalker. Like, I think these little things coming out to her in her mind make sense, that there are clues here that she is starting to notice and starting to kind of unravel herself. She doesn't get to the like, I'm a Palpatine, obviously, but I just wanted her to have more to deal with, rather than just, oh, I have to like fix this lightsaber, but that she realizes, I can't force heal this crystal, because there is this like darkness in me, that it is like blocking me from being able to do this crucial task. And to me, it felt like very important that the minute the crystal is healed is actually the minute she also reaches a moment of catharsis and healing. So that's when she, learns through everything she's experienced in the book, but through these ancient masters as well, the sort of core philosophy of the book, which is the like, building a refuge for your darkness, is like the point. It's what you have to do. You can't erase it. You can't ignore it. You can't flog it out of yourself. You have to accept those darker parts of yourself.
I love that the refuge is like her at home. She kind of like locks
which
away
is a
her
source
demons
of,
and
yeah, which is a source of like stress and for her in a lot of the book. She goes there and it's not positive. For her to sort of turn that memory into something, I often like think about my childhood bedroom all the time, of like what a weird place that is, how like fraught that place is in my mind. And I kind of applied that to her, right, where she's having these really intense visions about it, but then in the end it sort of becomes this little refuge for her deepest, darkest parts.
You mentioned the crystal healing, which again, one of my favorite parts of this book, and I love a favorite connection to the Rise of Skywalker, that we get more of that context to it. I'm excited to go back and kind of rewatch it there. The Skywalker saber is such an iconic piece of iconography for Star Wars. It passes from Anakin to Luke to Rey, and as she's dealing with this symbol, at the end of the day, even though like Obi-Wan in the prequels is like, this weapon's your life, here is Luke saying it's just a weapon. Right. And like, if our family's legacy, like it has to mean more than that, or it was never meant to go on. So I'd love to hear from you. Like, why is the Skywalker saber important, but why is it also not important? Like, why does it not matter?
Yeah. I mean, the another huge theme that emerges in this book is that these characters are myth to us, but not to themselves. And I wanted to go back to that over and over and over again. And so the Skywalker saber sort of being like this thing she really desperately wants to fix. It's like, it's a symbol for her. It's a symbol for the larger galaxy and the Resistance and the Jedi. But that at the end of the day, like the reason it matters is that it gives her the confidence to dive into this mentorship with Leia, right? That it is a symbolic like roadblock in her head, that she can't make this thing whole, when the real problem is that she herself is not whole in this moment. So to me, it had to like bridge those two things, that line of sort of like, yeah, I mean, it's just a lightsaber. She has about 30 now. So if she really wanted to, she could just get on with it. But the fact is, like, it's about more than that. It's about what it represents to her, that this thing shattered in the midst of conflict with Kylo Ren, and she is like stuck. She is like stuck on that moment.
Okay, I noticed something in this book that I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it meant something to me. In chapter 12, Leia encourages Rey to keep going and echo Carrie Fisher's iconic advice, stay afraid, but do it anyway. This moment between them early on in the book was such a warm moment to me, and a reminder of what I love most about both Leia as a character and Carrie as a person. Was this connection intentional? But more importantly, how has Carrie Fisher and her legacy impacted you?
Sure. Yes, that one is like unintentional. I did try to obscure it a little bit. There is a line very early on in Leia's, it's either in her thoughts or her dialogue. I think it's in the prose that I just ripped directly from the Princess Diarist, because she's just talking about the Force, and I was like, I can't say it any better, and she's the boss. So I'll just delicately zoop, I'll just excise that and drop it right here, because it's exactly what I want to say, and I think it's better if she says it. So yeah, I mean, I was reading her books the whole time I was doing this, because I just wanted to nail her voice. It was so important to me. I knew if it wasn't right, people would clock it immediately. So it became a bit of an obsession. Her chapters were certainly the slowest to write in a lot of ways, because I just was trying to be so careful about how everything was constructed and the way everything sounded, and to run a lot of tests with, like, does that sound like her? Would she say this? I think I think maybe Rey's chapters were even harder in some sense, because I was sort of constructing her inner dialogue, where I feel like Carrie's voice is so specific. We've had so much of her over the years, and same with Leia. There's like so much Leia content out there that was like a little less daunting to me. But I really did try very carefully with Rey to be like, okay, if this is our first time like really in her head a lot, I want to make sure that there's like a choices happening. So.
Well, I think you definitely understood the assignment, because I think whenever you read any type of Leia on the page and you can hear Carrie Fisher's voice, that is a testament to your writing. So thank you for giving us more of Carrie and of Leia and of Rey, and again, like a whole host of new characters, and even a little bit of Ben in there too. We get the soft side of Ben.
Yep, we get the soft
we get the dark side of Ben.
We get the hard side.
I love a little.
It's very fun. Yeah. I love to write a villain. I'm sure it comes through. But I finally got to write the Kylo Ren chapters. I was like, let's go. Yes. Here we go. Let's just be nasty. Let's go. I can't wait.
Even on his soft side, he was doing a little bit of gaslighting with Rey. He's like, oh, these rocks I'm stacking, you've seen me do this 100 times. She's like, what are you talking about? What, can you just not be normal for one day, please?
Well, it's actually a callback to a different part of the book, the rock stacking.
Yeah. Yep.
But
as you kind of look at the book you created here, again, had such a great time with it. Like, what do you hope readers take away from it ultimately? Like, when they look at this book and think of it in the context of not only like the sequel trilogy, but also just like the whole Star Wars mythology and really what it adds to a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, I mean, I when I really dove into it, I was really hoping that, I think this book is for a specific type of reader and person. I think if you're coming looking for like information, like nuggets, and like setting up for like all these secrets and blah blah blah, like I don't think that's really what we have on offer here. I think that I really view this as sort of more emotional scaffolding between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, and really offering this moment of sort of illumination and catharsis between Rey and Leia, so that if you did actually read these things or experience these things in sequence and you had never seen any of it, right? You're just going through all the stuff, and you watch The Last Jedi, and then you read this book, and then you watch The Rise of Skywalker, you're like, okay, like it feels like a seamless sort of transition is really what I was hoping to achieve. And to really just give people more time with Rey and Leia, because I think they're very special characters. And because of the way things happened with Carrie Fisher's passing and the filming schedule, like to just sort of get to have those moments that we never got to have on screen. And hopefully that is like, something kind of warm and healing for the fandom, because that's ultimately what I was hoping. So,
well, Madeleine, thank you so much for giving us this story, and again, like you said, more time with these characters. You're in good company here, because Sarah and I love the sequel trilogy. So, anytime we get to spend more time with these characters, it's a joy to us. So, thank you for giving us and many other Star Wars fans that opportunity. And that wraps it up for this podcast here. So again, thanks for coming on. Where can our listeners find you online? And are there any other works coming up that you can share that we should be on the lookout for?
Sure. Unfortunately, I don't know the release date for my next book yet. It should be sometime next year. Hopefully I should know that soon. It's a young adult horror book, kind of in the vein of the one I just put out, A Girl Walks into the Forest. If you like Baba Yaga, it's a great read. It's like a goopy little good for her A24 coded book. Yeah, if you like the gross, violent stuff that happens in this legacy book, then that's definitely for you. And yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky and Instagram. That's kind of the only place I'm at, and my Substack. I am planning to write like a little retrospective about writing this book and post that there. But that is AUTHOROUX, so Author Roux. And yeah, come say hi.
Awesome. Will do. And manifesting that you return to Star Wars once again someday. Just next time, don't let it be 9 years if you can help it.
Hey, at a certain point, you're like, it's never happening. It's never happening. I'm done. I got the one and it was epic. It's never happening again. And then one day in your email inbox, it's like, so we saved you for something. And to be told that is pretty crazy. Yeah.
Well, we hope that you get another email in your inbox, whether it be Old Republic or something else in the future. We'd love to hear more of your work in the Star Wars galaxy. So thank you so much for your time today and for writing this story. We are so grateful.
Yes, thank you guys. This was great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for listening to this episode of Friends of the Force. Once again, a big thank you to Madeleine Roux for joining us, as well as Random House Worlds for the review copy and for helping to coordinate the interview. And if you want to hear more from us here on the podcast, we're not going anywhere. We got lots more books to cover in the coming months. So stay tuned for more on any podcast feed of your choice, as well as our main socials, mostly Blue Sky and Instagram, sometimes Twitter. We also have a YouTube channel where we post all of our episodes. So subscribe wherever you listen and join us on the journey.
A special thanks to our patrons who help keep the podcast going. They are Andy, Brian, Cheryl, Chris, Clay, Deborah, Emma, Ian, Jennifer, Josephine, Katie, Knights of Ren, Krista, Logan, Lindsay, Matthew, Mark, Rob, Ruth, Santa, Skytalker, SoulCatcher, Tom, Travis, and Beagliff. We are so grateful for your support. Thank you to everyone who takes time out of their day to listen to this episode. We're so grateful for you, and we hope to see you in the next one.
Absolutely. Thank you all once again, and until next time, may the Force be with you always.